What if the life Prince Harry thought was his is now being lived perfectly by Chelsy Davy, and he's forced to watch it unfold like a slow, painful replay he can't pause? Because this isn't just some quiet ex-moved-on situation. No, this is the kind of emotional collision that hits deeper, uglier, the kind that exposes everything you tried to bury. And right now, insiders are whispering that something about Chelsy welcoming her third child didn't just surprise Harry, it shook him badly. Think about that for a second. Third child, not one, not two, three. That number isn't random. That was the dream, his dream. Back when things between them weren't broken, weren't messy, weren't destroyed by his own choices, he talked about a big family like it was non-negotiable. It wasn't some passing fantasy. It was a plan, a real shared vision. Life outside the royal chaos. Kids running around, something grounded, something normal. And now, that exact life exists, just without him. Chelsy didn't just move on, she upgraded her entire reality. Happy marriage, peaceful life, a growing family, a successful business, no constant cameras, no suffocating pressure, no royal drama choking the air. She looks free, genuinely free. And that's the part that hits hardest, because there's no sadness in her story, no what if, no regret. She didn't just leave that chapter behind, she erased it. Meanwhile, Harry is stuck staring at a version of happiness that feels eerily familiar, like a blueprint he once held, now fully built by someone else. And here's where it starts to get uncomfortable, because people close to him have been noticing something strange for a while. Years ago, he suddenly flipped his stance on having a big family. Out of nowhere, he started saying having more than 2 kids would be irresponsible. Climate concerns, overpopulation, big serious reasons, but the shift, it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like him. It felt like something had changed. Something had been influenced. Something had been redirected. And now, seeing Chelsy living out that original dream, it's like a mirror being forced in front of him. Brutal, unavoidable. But let's not rewrite history to make this a tragic love story. Because the truth, he didn't lose her because of bad timing or cruel fate. He lost her because of what he did. While she was building her life at university, trying to grow, trying to include him, he pulled away. Not quietly, not gracefully. He cheated more than once, not a mistake, a pattern. And when she reached out, invited him into her world, tried to keep them connected, he didn't show up. Literally, he dismissed her environment, her people, her life, as if it wasn't good enough. Imagine that moment. She's asking for effort. He's offering distance. She's trying to build something. He's quietly tearing it apart. And eventually, she chose herself, walked away. No drama, no begging, just done. That decision right there, that's the turning point everything leads back to. Because what makes this situation sting now isn't just that he lost someone, it's that he lost the right someone. The one who matched him before everything became complicated, before expectations, before pressure, before control dynamics and global scrutiny twisted everything into something unrecognizable. And now fast forward and people are starting to notice a pattern that feels almost too familiar. Because when you look at what's happening with Meghan Markle, there's a shift, a visible one. Not loud, not explosive, but subtle in a way that feels even more revealing. The kind of tension you can't fake away. Watch closely, they say. Look at how he reacts when she reaches for him in public. That slight hesitation, that tiny pullback, that moment where something feels off. It's not dramatic, but it's there, enough to raise questions. And insiders are claiming something even more telling, that he doesn't interpret those gestures as affection anymore. He sees them as something else, something controlled, something performative, like a message to the world about who's in charge. And suddenly, those small moments start adding up. Go back to that tense walkabout after Queen Elizabeth II passed. That was supposed to be unity, a rare moment of calm. Instead, behind the scenes, friction, actual arguments. Prince William and Harry already clashing before they even stepped out. Words exchanged, pressure rising, and right in the middle of it, Meghan stepping in, Harry trying to manage it, and Catherine forced to cool things down. That's not just tension. That's a situation barely being held together. And it didn't even start there. There were reports of Meghan wanting a separate appearance, her own moment, her own photographer, completely detached from William and Catherine. That idea shut down immediately. And what followed? Delays. 45 minutes of waiting during one of the most sensitive moments imaginable. You don't need inside access to see what that suggests. The pattern is right there. And then comes the public stage, the speeches, the moments that are supposed to carry weight. And instead, they circle back to one thing, her. over and over again. The spotlight bending, shifting, centering. People noticed, quietly at first, then louder. And Harry? He's standing right there in the middle of it all. But here's the part that makes everything feel heavier. This didn't start recently. According to people who've known him for years, there's always been something underneath. An edge, a frustration, an emotional instability that was never fully resolved. Even as a child, there were concerns. Real ones. Efforts were made to address it, to understand it. So what we're seeing now, it's not sudden. It's accumulated. Layer after layer. Lost relationships. Missed opportunities. Decisions made in anger instead of clarity. And now consequences stacking up. Because after the military, there were chances. Real ones. Paths that could have grounded him, given him structure, purpose, stability. And he turned them down. Not because they weren't good enough, but because of how he felt. Frustrated. Restricted. Like something had been taken from him. And that's where everything starts to spiral. Because once decisions are driven by emotion instead of direction, the fallout doesn't show up immediately. It builds quietly until one day you look around and realize everything feels off. And now he's here, watching a past life play out perfectly for someone else, while his present one feels like it's slowly slipping through his hands. And the worst part, he knows exactly where it all went wrong. And now, just when it feels like the emotional weight couldn't possibly get heavier, everything else starts crashing in at the same time. Because this isn't just about regret anymore. This is about pressure. Real suffocating pressure building from every direction, closing in tighter and tighter until there's almost no space left to breathe. Let's talk about the part nobody can ignore: money, control, and security. Right now, Prince Harry is locked in a battle that says a lot more than people realize. He's fighting to get taxpayer-funded security back in the UK. Not private protection, not personal arrangements, publicly funded security. And on the surface, that might sound like a straightforward safety concern, but look closer and it becomes something much more complicated. Because the government isn't just hesitating, they're worried. Not about whether he faces threats. That part, even experts agree there are risks. But politically, this is explosive. You have a man who stepped away from royal duties, made it clear he wanted independence, built a life outside the system, and now wants that same system to protect him again, funded by the public. Think about how that looks. Think about the reaction. People struggling, paying bills, dealing with their own pressures, and then being asked indirectly to support someone who walked away from the very role that justified that protection in the first place. It doesn't land well, not even close. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable, because while he's arguing that his security situation is serious, he's also been traveling to places like Nigeria, Colombia, Jordan, not exactly low-risk destinations, without the level of protection he claims is necessary. So naturally, people start asking questions. Is the threat truly that extreme, or is something else driving this fight? And some critics are going even further, suggesting something darker. That fear itself might be playing a role, that the more anxious he feels, the more dependent he becomes on the system around him. Whether that's true or not, the perception alone is damaging. But just when you think that's the peak of the tension, another layer appears. And this one is explosive, because there are whispers, not random gossip, but reports that have passed through serious editorial scrutiny that Meghan Markle has at least explored the idea of a post-divorce book. Let that sink in. Not confirmed, not finalized, but discussed, considered, enough to be real. And if you understand the weight of that, you know why this changes everything, because we've already seen what happens when private royal life becomes public narrative. We saw it with his memoir, the fallout, the fractures, the damage to relationships that may never fully recover. Now imagine that same level of exposure, but from the other side. Someone who has lived inside the marriage. Someone who has seen everything up close. The arguments, the dynamics, the decisions, the private moments no one else has access to. That's not just a book, that's leverage. And suddenly, every disagreement, every tension-filled moment, every subtle shift we've been seeing in public, it all starts to feel like part of something bigger, something strategic, something that may have been considered long before anyone realized. Whether that's fully true or not, the mere possibility is enough to shift the entire power balance. Because now, Harry isn't just dealing with emotional strain. He's dealing with risk, real risk. If things fall apart, he doesn't just lose a relationship. He could lose control of the narrative, of his image, of of how the world sees him moving forward. And then there's the part that hits even harder. The children, because this isn't just about headlines and public perception anymore. This is about family in the most real, irreversible sense. If things go wrong, if separation becomes reality, there's a very real possibility that Meghan Markle would have primary custody. The children are based in California. The legal framework there, it's not simple. It's not something you can just navigate your way out of. And this isn't new information. People warned him years ago, clearly, directly. If you build your life there, if you raise your children there, you may never fully bring them back. At the time, maybe it didn't feel real. Maybe it felt distant, hypothetical. Now, it's a possibility sitting right in front of him. So imagine that position. Really imagine it. You're in a relationship that feels strained. The connection isn't what it used to be. The public sees glimpses of tension. Insiders talk. Speculation grows. But pushing too far, walking away, that could trigger a chain reaction you can't control. You risk losing proximity to your own children. You risk being exposed in ways you can't predict. You risk watching your entire life be rewritten by someone else. That's not just emotional pressure. That's psychological weight that doesn't switch off, that doesn't disappear when the cameras are gone. And people are starting to notice it, not just in what's being said, but in how he looks, how he carries himself. There's something different, a heaviness, a constant tension behind the eyes, like someone trying to hold everything together while feeling it slip, piece by piece. And maybe that's why the situation with Chelsy Davy hit the way it did, because her life is simple. Not easy, but simple in the way that matters. Clear direction, stable foundation, no chaos bleeding into every corner. She made her choice, stepped away from the noise, and built something solid. 3 children, a partner, peace, no public unraveling, no constant scrutiny, no legal battles, no emotional tug of war playing out in front of millions, just stability. And when you're surrounded by complexity, by conflict, by pressure from every side, seeing that kind of simplicity isn't comforting. It's haunting because it reminds you of something you once had within reach, something that didn't require fighting the world to maintain, something that could have been yours if different choices had been made. And that's the part that doesn't fade. That's the part that stays with you in quiet moments, in the spaces between the noise, when there's no distraction left, no narrative to hide behind. Just the truth that the life you're watching, the one that looks so calm, so complete, so right, was once yours to build, and you let it go.